what it means to have a third house Chiron. Right, so if there's Chiron in this position, there is already an inbuilt feeling that the way that we communicate to the world is not ultimately effective, or we're not being heard in the way that what we're trying to transmit is not being understood to the outer world in the same way. So there's some sort of mismatch happening, and this can be through quite literal communication issues. So whether there's in a written, more of a written sense, there can be dyslexia, or it can be stuttering, it can be talking way too fast, no one can understand you. It's even ADHD. There's something with the nervous system which doesn't equate in parallel with how things appear in the outer world, and this can lead to a lot of frustration with communication. And because of that, some of us can then translate that to our worth around our intelligence and how smart we are, and people can't understand us. Do we have something wrong with us? Are we not capable of translating and communicating and comprehending? And this can take quite a toll on someone's esteem. Chiron so much is about our self-worth and self-esteem, and to have it here, there's quite often a lack of understanding from the outer world. And because of this, early on there can be a hyper emphasis on wanting to be seen as smart enough, wanting to be seen as intellectually capable enough, basically. And the other flip side of that is, if we early on don't value our own ability to communicate, that can cause some issues with withdrawal, or some sort of social, not so much detachment, but frustration with connecting with other people. Like, maybe people won't understand us in terms of the content, or won't hear us, or something along those lines. And I think it's only when we learn to calm our nervous system, and when we start to, because you've usually got a quite active central nervous system, a quite active mind, which can be prone to anxiety and all other heightened or hyperactive nervous system states. Because of that, there is such importance that needs to be placed on calming ourselves. And in calming ourselves, a whole lot of things that clouded our ability to see clearly and to speak clearly, and see as in understand what we're reading, or to speak clearly, that becomes a lot easier because our inner cloud has calmed down a little bit. There's also a whole lot of things that we thought were important to express at the time, because we're so wired, those things can dissipate a little bit, so we start to communicate more effectively and with what we actually mean. You are not stupid, and your worth is not around your intellectual capacity. We might value that as a society in this day and age, but I don't know how much that's going to be changing, because I don't think intellectualism and hyper-rationalism is really getting us anywhere, to be honest. Valuing your capacities that extend past your ability to perform with words and language. If you can do this, or even if there's an emphasis on expanding our skill set, expanding our abilities through any number of ways. There can be speech lessons, there can be going to public speaking, what are they called? Meetings of sorts. Going to these things, singing lessons, anything that will both harmonize our thoughts with our words, harmonize what we're trying to say and how we're expressing it. Basically, that's what matters here. And instead of getting rattled by feeling like you're hitting a brick wall, maybe not speaking just for the sake of it and trying to be heard, listening to yourself, learning what materials to actually take in and to learn, because quite often, especially in more of an ADHD scenario, because, and this might only be a portion of the people watching this, but if there is some sort of intolerance for boring, or there's some sort of intolerance for anything that doesn't really engage, that takes your interest, basically, choose to apply your energy to the things you really care about and excel at those things. That's my advice if you're a ADHD hyperactive person. So it's not that you lack attention or you lack certain abilities, it's just that unless your emotions are engaged, at least you care about it, you're going to be less effective. And I actually think that's quite an adaptive characteristic to have, just quietly. Also, with the frustrations with others not understanding us, this is something that only can be improved once you focus on your intellectual passions, or the things that captivate your mind, and you spend more time there, not feeling like you're constantly fighting through life trying to be heard. If speaking is an issue, becoming a writer or finding modes of communication in a writing sense or a blogging sense, teaching others in time, once you've mastered these things, once it's been an issue, applying these things for people that don't know how to translate information very, very easily. There's so many different, because Gemini is all about the duality of our mind and our ability to think rationally and creatively. And if there's impairments there, at least a perceived impairment, there can be too much emphasis on one part of our mind, on our rational mind perhaps. So in the case of, say, if you've got no communication issues, it can be largely that you've hyper-emphasized the rational part of your mind and your abilities and neglected the more creative, imaginative side, which can cause other frustrations as well. There's so many things to say about this, and I'm excited personally because I have Chiron in Gemini, so it's not the same thing, that's generational, but I definitely still understand what it's like to have frustrations with communication. So because of that personal note, and I might wrap up here, is feel free and to ask me any questions and how I personally navigated those frustrations. And yeah, please feel free to share your experiences as well. I'd love to hear if you have a Chiron in the third and how much that's impacted your ability to feel smart enough or feel effective with your communications, and how much that's all affected your worth. So thanks for listening, and hope to hear from you soon.